Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
All right, we just keep on counting it down to kick off. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, brought to you, as mentioned, by good friends at Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, Alabama held its second and final scrimmage of fall camp this past weekend. Fall camp is now over. Alabama's back on its regular school schedule, 3:40 practices each afternoon, and the Tide will hold that little final audition this coming weekend, Rodney, where they go through the headphones, how they're going to come out on the stadium, warm-ups, the whole deal, just to get themselves game ready, kind of an audition, because a week from Saturday, we've got real tackle football, as Alabama will host Middle Tennessee on September 2nd at Bryant-Denny Stadium at 6 p.m. All right, as we said, Rod, let's get to it. The final scrimmage of this year's fall camp was this past Saturday. Again, you just get two scrimmages. You don't get to play against anybody else. There's no exhibition games. I mean, these things are important, and we weren't allowed in, but my gosh, you had a very exhaustive scrimmage report on TiderInsider.com as you talked to numerous people. I talked to a lot of people, and obviously the big question is, who's going to be the starting quarterback? Now, we continue to, Rodney, to feel like it's going to be Jalen Milroe, but this is odd to me. And I understand people have different opinions, and people's opinions are based a lot of times on their own bias, who they think should be the starter. But I talked to former players. You talked to former people that were there. You talked to 4 or 5 different people. You might get 4 or 5 different opinions on these quarterbacks. It's remarkable.
It's incredible. Look, you and I both, we've covered a lot of these quarterback situations through the years. I don't ever recall one where you had such a diversity of opinions and kind of feedback. But I'm like you. I really think right now, Gary, where we are, that headed into that first game against Middle Tennessee, that Jalen Milroe will likely be the starter.
Yeah, that's where it's trending. Let me ask you this, because most of the teams in this conference have already announced their starting quarterback. Auburn and Hugh Freeze did it last week, and I'm not saying that Nick Saban should, not my call, but do you think on Monday, when he has his first game week press conference and Alabama puts out a depth chart, that he will announce a starting quarterback, or just wait and up until game time until we know?
Well, I mean, I think he's done it both ways in the past. I remember 2016 when he came out and said, look, this starting quarterback position's between 2 guys, Cooper Bateman and Blake Barnett. But what we really knew behind the scenes, talking to people, was watch out for that freshman Jalen Hurts. And Coach Saban went on to talk about Jalen Hurts would eventually have a chance to possibly contribute. So, with all that said, it's not a given that he's going to announce it on Monday, who's going to start. And I really don't think it matters. I think however he decides to handle it, we've seen both ways, and I think both ways have worked out well.
Regardless of who the quarterback is or how many quarterbacks they play, that offensive line is going to need to produce, not only to open up holes for the run game, take pressure off the quarterback, but protect the quarterback. Rodney, the offensive line is still work in progress. It looks like right now that Caden Proctor is the leader in the clubhouse at left tackle, but he's a true freshman. They've moved Tyler Booker over to left guard to help him out, previously at right guard. McLaughlin's the center. It looks like Darian Dalcourt is running ahead of T.J. Ferguson at right guard and J.C. Latham out there at right tackle. What do you think of this group and their potential to do the job?
Well, I think really when you look at that group, I think it's a strong run blocking group, and that's from everything that we've picked up from those who have observed practices, scrimmages, those things that kind of reveal how they look right now. And I think the thing that you really kind of, if you're Alabama, you're looking at that offensive line, is that left side. Again, he moved Tyler Booker over there for a reason, to maybe increase the comfort level of whoever it is, whether it's Caden Proctor or Elijah Pritchett. Right now, I'm with you. I think it's probably going to be Caden Proctor at that left tackle spot. Pass protection, going to be a real key at that spot.
It is, because your quarterback can't do anything if he's on his back. How important, I mentioned it earlier, is the run game going to be to take pressure off the quarterback?
I think it's tons. I think it's really important that Alabama run the football, run it effectively. That's what they want to do. You've got an offensive line. We talked about them. We think they can have a chance to be really strong, and they're going to get better and better as the season goes on. You've got the running backs, the stable of running backs. And again, you have some tight ends you can get involved in the passing game, Gary. I think that'll certainly help the quarterbacks. This wide receiver core, I know we're going to talk about them a little bit later, so we'll touch on that then. But I think the running game can do a lot for these young quarterbacks.
Well, let's talk about them right now, because the tight ends, we're hearing glowing reviews on Dupree, the transfer from Maryland, on Amari Nyblack, all of those guys. We're hearing good. Robbie Oots, as an H-back type of guy, you put it fullback. The wide receivers, we feel good about the tight ends. Wide receivers, we know there's talent there. We know there's speed, athleticism, but we continue to be troubled by reports of a lot of drop balls, too many drop balls in these practices.
Yeah, that's obviously, like Coach Saban said last week, the definition of a receiver is you got to catch the ball. That's what you're supposed to do. There's been some inconsistencies there. I know that those inconsistencies continued in the last scrimmage with not only the receivers, but the tight ends as well. But also, I do think, Gary, talking to some people that was at the scrimmage, there was some improvement shown by some individuals, whether it was Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, Malik Benson made some plays. Again, there's going to be drops occasionally, but you can't afford too many. They can really, really hurt the rhythm of your passing game.
Before we get to Coach Talk, real quick word on the defense. And I think that we said this a little bit last week. You look at the roster, the talent's there. The physicality is there. I mean, there's a lot of big, strong athletes, high recruited guys. The defense was good last year, but it needs to take a step and be even better this year, particularly with what might be some questions on offense. Rodney, I'm kind of at a point now, and of course Kevin Steele's coming in here, where I think the players are there. At some point, the coaches have to get it out of them. This defense should be athletic enough, talented enough to really make life rough for the opposing quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think Kevin Steele will do a really good job overall defensively. I think he's already done a good job. I think when you look at the way they've energized them defensively, you talk to a lot of people and they say, look, this is a really physical defense. They're really aggressive. They tackle extremely well. And again, we're talking about the scrimmages and the practices, obviously. It has to carry over into the game. But you talk about the secondary, and they talk about how well they're tackling. You miss a tackle in the secondary, it might be over. So, again, I think we're going to see a lot of fundamental improvement, a lot of tackling improvement, and I'm really excited to see it.
All right, let's get to Coach Talk. And Coach Saban did speak to the media following Saturday's final scrimmage of fall camp, and he was asked the question, Coach, what did you see from the quarterbacks? And I have to admit, he told us exactly what he saw. Watch this.
They all got to play. They all took snaps. They all completed some passes. They all made some throws that weren't as good as they should have been. And they all got sacked. That's what I saw.
All right, a little sarcasm there, I think, intended. But obviously the reporter doing his job, wanting to kind of know, wanting Saban to say something more in depth about maybe who's leading the court. Bottom line is he's not going to do that, and he's not ready to do that. He has not stepped out and gone out on a limb yet and said any particular quarterback is ahead of any other quarterback. If he has, I've missed it.
Yeah, and I probably talked to 10 or 12 people, and they basically said the same thing Nick Saban said. It was a consensus. I mean, some good, some bad. But, yeah, no, I think that he's got a call to make, and Milrose seems to be the guy. We've talked about that. I mean, here's a guy that's got some starting experience here in this program. He went through spring practice as the number one guy. Kind of came into camp, I guess you would say, as the number one guy, Gary, because he's taken all the first snaps in a lot of the things that they've done. So I would lean towards Milroe right now. But again, I do think that the competition is probably going to remain open.
All right, we can't finish this discussion, though. Obviously, you've got Milroe, you've got Simpson, you got Buckner. But you got two freshmen, Dylan Lonergan and Eli Holstein. And Lonergan in particular, we've heard glowing reviews. In fact, a practice observer told me, he said, listen, man, those three guys, the upperclassmen, they're all a little tight. They're not. He just goes out and slings it. He's just going out and playing. Maybe that's because he doesn't feel like he's going to play. But is there a scenario if one of these upperclassmen doesn't step up that we could see Dylan Lonergan in the field at some point in the first game?
I think ideally you would not want that. I think right now you're hoping that one of those three guys takes the bull by the horns. But is it possible? Yeah, I think it is certainly possible. I would say right now I don't expect that. I would expect one of the three to step up. But if not, we might see Dylan Lonergan.
All right, let's move on. Alabama plays 14 players on the 2023 preseason coaches All-SEC team today, tying Georgia for the most players on the 3 all-conference squads. LSU was third with 11. Crimson Tide had 4 players earn first-team recognition, with Kool-Aid McKinstry earning a nod as a defensive back and return specialist. The other 3 Alabama players who landed on the first team were offensive lineman J.C. Latham, linebacker Dallas Turner, and place kicker Will Reichard. Now, it looks impressive until you see that Georgia had 10 players on the coaches All-SEC first team. So Alabama with good numbers overall, but clearly on the first team, Georgia, at least the coaches, appears to have an edge. Rodney, we talked about this earlier when the AP team came out and some different all-conference teams. Alabama's got talent, there's no doubt about it, but they're not viewed quite the same way as they were just a few years ago.
They're not. There's no question about that. But I'm going to say this. I look at Alabama right now, Gary. I see some guys, when we're talking at the end of the season, you might see a lot more Alabama players fill up that All-SEC team than maybe you see right now.
Well, that's when it counts. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, a former Crimson Tide player's son, a Crimson Tide player that played for Nick Saban, is coming to Alabama to also play for the coach. A legacy already. Plus, the latest accomplishment by Alabama golfer Nick Dunlap puts him in very exclusive company. I mean, this is big-time stuff. We'll explain coming up next. And a little bit later on, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Some emails have already come in. Plus, we will take your phone calls live at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV. We'll return after this. And welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban has his first legacy, or soon will, at the University of Alabama. This is unbelievable. Last Friday, Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., that's right, his father, Dre Kirkpatrick, played football at Alabama as a cornerback and then 8 years in the NFL. Well, Dre Jr. committed to the Crimson Tide, but only after he duped Mizzou, like he was headed to Mizzou. But this is the signing ceremony there in Gadsden at Gadsden City High School. Dre Jr., a little bit different player. Remember, Dre Sr. was about 6'2" or 3", played corner, about 185. Dre Jr. is a little shorter, about 5'11", 5'11 and a half, right around 200 pounds. Probably more of a safety prospect, but last year's a junior, Rodney, 69 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 16 pass breakups. And we know Nick Saban, he doesn't take anybody just because they played for another player of his, although this is noteworthy and it makes us feel very, very old. But he's a good player, obviously, in his own right, even if he is a little bit different kind of player than his dad.
He is, and, you know, he came to the Alabama camp. We've talked about the importance of those Alabama camps that they have in the summer. Prospects come, they work out in front of the coaching staff, gives the coaching staff a great opportunity to evaluate him, and I think that's where Dre Jr. made his impact.
Another defensive back in this class of 2024. This secondary class is shaping up to be epic.
You know what, Gary, it is. It really is. They've got some good corners, some good safeties, as you mentioned, some really talented players.
All right, Dre Kirkpatrick and now Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. Unbelievable. Both going to play for Nick Saban. And I remember when we were saying, Rodney, if Nick Saban coaches, 7, 8 years at Alabama, it'd be an accomplishment. Yeah. How about 17?
It's pretty amazing.
And father, son. All right, let's move on. Crimson Tide men's golfer Nick Dunlap has had an unbelievable summer, and it just keeps getting better and better. Dunlap defeated Ohio State golfer Neil Shipley 4-3 in the 36-hole final at the United States Men's Amateur Championship on Sunday outside famed Cherry Hills Country Club near Denver, Colorado. Nick Dunlap joins Tiger Woods as the only people ever to win the U.S. Junior Amateur and the U.S. Am. Now, Tiger won each 3 times, but still, Nick Dunlap, the only other person to do it. He's just the 3rd University of Alabama golfer to reach the championship match, joining Jerry Pate in 1974 and Michael Thompson in 2007, and just the 2nd to win the championship. Pate won it as the USAM champ in 1974. Rodney, just a quick word on this kid. He's 19 years old. Wow. He's just going to be a sophomore at Alabama. He's going to play the Walker Cup matches in Scotland here in about 10 days. And we know this is a great Alabama golf program, but hopefully he'll lead them to the national championship that spring. He's this good.
19 years old.
Yeah.
He didn't even look like he felt the pressure, did he?
No, listen, he went through that field. It was something special. Congratulations to Nick Dunlap. All right, still to come on TITV, Alabama soccer is off to a hot start. You would expect that after the team made it to the Final Four last year. And it's the defense, though, that's leading the way. More on that coming up. And phone lines, I'm told, are open. Give us a ring right now if you want to get through at 205-348-9882. That's 348-WVUA. We've also got plenty of emails. We've got a tweet. Tider Insider Nation, it's your time to weigh in. And, of course, next week at this time, we'll be getting ready to give our first score predictions of 2023. We'll be right back with more. You stay with us. A Final Four a year ago, and Alabama soccer off to a 2-0 start, and they've yet to give up a goal. How about that? Last Thursday, they shut out DePaul 2-0. And then on Sunday, went on the road and beat UAB 1-0. And didn't score until late, but still, against the Blazers, Alabama outshot UAB 14-0. That means that UAB didn't even get a shot on goal. Alabama plays at Lipscomb on Thursday before returning home to face Memphis on Sunday. And we're back here on TITV. I'm Gary Harris. He's Rodney Orr, and I bet you know who you are. And we're going to talk to some of you right now, beginning with Putty over in Alabaster. Hey, Putty, what's going on?
Hey, Gary. Hey, Rodney. How are y'all?
Doing well.
Good. I wanted y'all's opinion on our 5 quarterbacks, if you would list them like 1 through 5, wasn't what you've heard from scrimmages, and how good they can read defenses. I think they all can make the throws, but can they?
Well, Putty, that's a question that is very important for a quarterback to answer. I can tell you that, because if you don't read the defense correctly, then you make a bad throw and you have issues. I don't know. I'm not out at practice. I'm going to let Rodney handle that one. In terms of reading defenses, how would you rank them?
Well, first of all, let's say this, Gary. At these practices and these scrimmages, they're putting them in different situations. It's not, who's reading the defense better. I mean, because they're in different situations. It's difficult to compare them in that way. And I'm certainly not privy to all the information to rate them 1 to 5. I'll say this. I think that they're going to be well prepared. I think whoever the quarterback it is, there'll be something tailored around him that he's comfortable doing. And it may be different than the other guy. So we'll see. But, as far as answering that question, I certainly couldn't do it.
All right. Thanks, though, for the phone call, Putty. Let's get over to Birmingham and talk to Ronald. Hey, Ronald, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Great, man.
All right. I just have one observation.
Okay.
In regards to the quarterback situation.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why Jalen Milroe is being judged by last year's mistakes. If we remember, Mac Jones, when he was backing up Tua, he came in at the Auburn game and threw 2 pick sixes.
He did, Ronald. I think that's fair. But I think going into 2020, a lot of people were remembering Mac Jones the good, but also, hey, man, if he didn't make those mistakes against Auburn, they win that Iron Bowl. It's a fair question, but I think in fairness, that's what we remember from Milroe because that's what we saw. I pointed out against Arkansas, I thought he played great, and he made a lot of really good plays against Texas A&M. Unfortunately, he made some bad plays too, and that's what we know. None of the other guys other than Buckner and Notre Dame have ever played. So that's going to get brought up. But I can tell you this, Nick Saban's they're wanting to learn from that, but they're not going to name a starter based on what he did last year against Texas A&M. They're going to name a starter based on what he and the other quarterbacks are doing right now.
Yeah. Well, and Mac Jones had the benefit, Ronald, of playing in that bowl game against Michigan.
He did. He looked great.
He had a really, really good game. So the point is that fans' memories sometimes can be short. When you come back with a really good performance like he did. Now, I will say this. If you remember that first scrimmage going into August camp, he didn't perform very well. There were a lot of people that were saying, hey, watch out. Bryce Young may win this job as a true freshman.
Yeah.
And then Mac came back and had a really good scrimmage, and you saw what happened in 2020.
Yeah. So, but right now, Ronald, like Rodney and I both said, we think Jalen Milroe is going to be the starter. So regardless of what happened last year, it's our prediction that he'll be taking the first snap against Middle Tennessee. All right, do we want to get to an email here? What are we doing? Or are we going to get to the break? All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break here, and we'll be back with more of your phone calls and emails. Again, the phone number 205-348-9882. Our email question of the day is coming up as well, and we'll be back with that after this. Bama Volleyball hosted North Alabama, UNA, in an exhibition at Foster Auditorium last Saturday. The Crimson Tide won in 4 sets, with UNA taking the first one and then Alabama taking the next 3. Next up, Alabama's hosting the Crimson Tide Invitational this weekend, beginning with a season opener against Mississippi Valley on Friday at 12:30. The Crimson Tide will face St. Louis on Friday night and wrap up the weekend against Mercer on Saturday. All 3 matches will be played inside Foster Auditorium. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. It's time for our email question of the day, brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to all your heating and air conditioning needs, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. Let's get to it. It is actually from Twitter. Our Goal Line Stan wants to know what will our run-pass ratio look like, 60-40 or 70-30? Will wide receivers be dropping passes? Will that be an Achilles heel? Rodney, I don't know that, again, these are good questions. They're just tough questions to answer. I think ideally you want to be balanced. I would say that ideally it'd like to be probably about 50-50 or maybe 55-45, somewhere in there. But, yeah, when they're throwing the ball, you want guys to catch the balls. That's for sure.
You do. And again, I think more 50-50. Probably with this team, Gary, again, I think there's going to be more of an emphasis on the run. Again, you have to be balanced. You have to have a really strong passing attack to balance it out. But I think it's probably closer to a 50-50 would be my percentage.
Yeah, Rodney, one thing I want to point out to a lot of viewers, people talk about balance. I've never had an offensive coach tell me, they have a play sheet, some of the calls are scripted to start the game, but they don't ever go into a game saying, looking at percentages, we got to be 50-50 or 60-40.
No,
the game dictates a lot of times how the game flow goes.
A lot of times. It's just like a player. I mean, if you've got a running back that's hot, you go with that guy. If you've got plays that are working, certain things that are working, you're going to probably stick to it.
All right, Rodney, an email that we've gotten for several weeks, and we want to address it because Jim is a good viewer out there in Sparks, Nevada. He has wanted to know about the results of the softball team when they went to Italy. He said he saw the pictures. Jim, no results were posted. I know they played some games, but I think this trip was all about team bonding and sisterhood. I could not find any scores. They did not post any scores. They did play some games. That's why you haven't been able to find any results. They were not posted. All right, thanks for all the phone calls and the emails. Some emails that we didn't get to. We're sorry. When we try to get to those next week. It's a beautiful evening, hot one in Tuscaloosa. We'll be back to wrap up TITV. Stay with us. All right, the countdown to kickoff is on. Next week, we will have our first predictions as Alabama gets ready to play Middle Tennessee. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Tider Insider TV. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 6:30 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with some preseason video of Will Anderson, the number 3 overall pick by the Houston Texans. He was Pro Football Focus's highest graded rookie in the second week of the exhibition season against the Dolphins. He had 2 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a sack. He got after those QBs. Good night.